The concrete walls of the parking garage seemed to close in around Jonathan Norman as he realized he was walking into a trap. His expensive Italian shoes echoed against the cold floor with each step, but something felt wrong. The usual hum of the building's ventilation system was too quiet, and the shadows between the parked cars seemed darker than they should be. Jonathan's hands trembled as he reached for his phone, but the screen showed no signal. His heart hammered against his ribs as he heard the soft scrape of footsteps behind him. 3 men emerged from behind a white van, their faces covered with dark masks. They moved with the careful precision of people who had done this before. "Mr. Norman," one of them said in a calm voice that made Jonathan's blood run cold. "You're coming with us." Jonathan's mind raced. As the CEO of Norman Industries, he'd always known his wealth made him a target, but he'd never imagined it would happen like this. The parking garage beneath his own office building had always felt safe. His security team swept it every morning. How had these men gotten past all the cameras and guards? "What do you want?" Jonathan asked, surprised by how steady his voice sounded despite the fear clawing at his chest. "Just your cooperation," the man replied. "And your signature on a few documents." Jonathan understood immediately. This wasn't about ransom money. Someone wanted to take over his company, and they needed him alive long enough to sign it away. His throat felt dry as he realized how carefully this had been planned. He took a step backward, his eyes scanning for an escape route. The elevator was too far away, and the stairwell was blocked by another masked figure who had appeared from nowhere. The men began to close in, their movements slow and deliberate, like hunters who knew their prey had nowhere to run. "Please," Jonathan said, hating the desperation in his voice. "I have a charity event tonight. People will notice if I'm not there." The leader laughed, a sound that echoed off the concrete walls. "Mr. Norman, we've been watching you for months. We know exactly who will notice and who won't. Trust me, you won't be missed for quite some time." Jonathan felt his knees weaken. These weren't amateur criminals looking for quick money. They knew his schedule, his habits, his security procedures. Someone had been feeding them information from the inside. The betrayal hit him almost as hard as the fear. He thought about his empty penthouse apartment, about how he'd eaten dinner alone for the past 6 months since his last relationship ended. The man was right. Who would actually miss him? His assistant would assume he'd left early for a weekend trip. His board members would think he was taking a well-deserved break. His few remaining friends had their own lives and problems. The realization that he could disappear without anyone caring made him feel more alone than he'd ever felt in his life. Here he was, worth billions of dollars, and he had no one who would sound the alarm if he vanished. "Time to go," the leader said, producing a pair of zip ties from his pocket. Jonathan's survival instincts finally kicked in. He couldn't let them take him without a fight. He might die in this parking garage, but he wouldn't make it easy for them. He grabbed his briefcase with both hands and swung it as hard as he could at the nearest man's head. The case connected with a satisfying crack, and the man stumbled backward, cursing loudly. Jonathan didn't wait to see if he'd done any real damage. He ran toward the far corner of the garage, where he remembered seeing a maintenance door during his morning walks. His expensive suit wasn't made for running, and his dress shoes slipped on the polished concrete. Behind him, he could hear the men shouting to each other, their calm professionalism replaced by anger and urgency. Heavy footsteps pounded after him, getting closer with each second. Jonathan reached the maintenance door and pulled on the handle, but it was locked. He pounded on it with his fist, knowing it was useless but unable to stop himself. The sound echoed through the garage like gunshots. "End of the line, Mr. Norman," the leader called out. Jonathan could hear him breathing hard from the chase. "You just made this a lot more difficult for yourself." Jonathan turned around slowly, his back pressed against the cold metal door. The 3 men stood about 10 feet away, no longer bothering to hide their irritation. One of them had a bleeding nose from the briefcase attack, and his eyes promised revenge. "You know what happens to people who don't cooperate," the leader continued. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Your choice." Jonathan's mind went blank with terror. He'd always prided himself on his ability to think clearly under pressure, but now all he could think about was how stupid he'd been to work so late, to park in the most isolated corner of the garage, to trust that his money could protect him from everything. The men began to advance again, and Jonathan pressed himself harder against the door. He could feel the cold metal through his shirt, and somewhere in the back of his mind he wondered if this was how his life would end. Alone in a parking garage, with no one to mourn him except the stockholders who would worry about their investments. Then he heard something that made his heart skip a beat. Footsteps. But these weren't the heavy boots of his captors. These were lighter, more careful. Someone else was in the garage. The three men heard it too. They exchanged glances, and the leader held up a hand for silence. Jonathan held his breath, afraid to hope but unable to stop himself. Maybe his security team had finally noticed something was wrong. Maybe help was coming. But as the footsteps grew closer, Jonathan realized they belonged to just one person. One person against three trained kidnappers. Whoever was coming would probably end up as trapped as he was. The leader gestured to his companions and they spread out, preparing to deal with this new threat. Jonathan wanted to shout a warning, but his voice seemed to have abandoned him. He could only watch in horror as an innocent person walked into the same trap that had caught him. The footsteps stopped. The garage fell silent except for the distant hum of traffic from the street above. Jonathan's heart hammered so loudly he was sure everyone could hear it. Sweat dripped down his back despite the cool air. Then a woman's voice cut through the silence, calm and controlled in a way that made Jonathan's skin crawl. "Gentlemen, I think you're in the wrong place." Alicia Thompson had been watching the parking garage surveillance monitors for 3 hours when she noticed something that made her straighten in her chair. The same white van had been parked in the same spot for over an hour, and that never happened in the executive parking level. People came and went constantly during business hours, but now the building was nearly empty. She adjusted her security uniform and leaned closer to the bank of monitors that covered every angle of the underground garage. Her 8 years of military service had taught her to trust her instincts, and right now those instincts were screaming that something was wrong. Alicia had been working night security at Norman Industries for 6 months, ever since she'd moved to the city with her daughter Tiana. It wasn't the career she'd planned when she'd served as military police, but it paid the bills and gave her health insurance. Most nights were quiet, with nothing more exciting than escorting late-working executives to their cars or dealing with the occasional homeless person who wandered into the building. But tonight felt different. She'd noticed the van when it first arrived, mainly because it was parked in a spot reserved for company executives. The driver had gotten out and walked to the elevator, but something about his movements had caught her attention. Military training had taught her to read body language, and this man moved like someone who was trying very hard to look casual. Now, as she watched the monitors, she saw 3 figures emerge from behind the van. They wore dark clothes and moved with the kind of coordination that came from planning and practice. Her stomach dropped as she realized what she was seeing. Alicia reached for her radio to call the police, but stopped when she spotted another figure on the monitors. Jonathan Norman, the CEO himself, was walking across the garage toward his usual parking spot. He looked tired and distracted, completely unaware of the danger waiting for him. She watched in growing horror as the 3 men positioned themselves to intercept him. This was happening right now and there was no time to wait for police backup. By the time officers arrived, Jonathan Norman would be gone. Alicia's hands shook as she weighed her options. She could lock down the building and wait for help, but that would trap Jonathan with his attackers. She could sound the alarm, but that might panic the kidnappers into doing something desperate. Or she could go down there herself and try to help. The rational part of her mind knew she should stay put. She was a single mother with an 8-year-old daughter who needed her. Tiana was staying with their neighbor Mrs. Patterson tonight, probably already asleep and dreaming about the science fair project they'd been working on together. Something happened to Alicia, what would happen to Tiana? But as she watched Jonathan realize he was trapped, watched him try to run and fail, she knew she couldn't just sit there. Her military training wouldn't let her watch an innocent person get hurt when she had the skills to help. Alicia grabbed her security radio and the building's emergency phone. If she was going to do this, she needed backup on the way. She called 911 first, giving the dispatcher a quick report about the kidnapping in progress. Then she radioed her supervisor, knowing he was probably asleep in his office on the 20th floor. "Control to base," she said into the radio. "We have a situation in the executive parking garage. Multiple suspects, possible kidnapping. I'm going to investigate." The radio crackled with static, then her supervisor's sleepy voice came through. "Copy that, Thompson. Wait for police backup before engaging." Alicia clipped the radio back to her belt without responding. She couldn't wait for backup. Every minute she hesitated made Jonathan's situation worse. She opened the locked drawer of her desk and pulled out the pepper spray and flashlight she kept there. The building's security policy didn't allow guards to carry weapons, but she'd learned to make do with what she had. More importantly, she had 8 years of military police training that had taught her how to handle situations like this. As she rode the elevator down to the parking garage, Alicia's mind raced through possible strategies. 3 against 1 wasn't good odds, but she had the element of surprise. The kidnappers wouldn't expect a lone security guard to interfere with their plans. The elevator doors opened onto the parking level, and Alicia immediately heard voices echoing off the concrete walls. She moved carefully toward the sound, staying in the shadows between parked cars. Her military training kicked in automatically, and she felt the familiar calm that came with focusing on a mission. She could see the three men now, standing in a semicircle around Jonathan Norman. He was pressed against a maintenance door, looking terrified but still defiant. One of the men had blood on his face, which meant Jonathan had managed to fight back at least once. Alicia assessed the situation quickly. The men were focused on their target and hadn't noticed her yet. She had maybe 30 seconds before they realized they weren't alone. She needed to create confusion and give Jonathan a chance to escape. She thought about Tiana, sleeping peacefully at Mrs. Patterson's house. Her daughter had already lost her father when he'd walked out on them 2 years ago. If something happened to Alicia tonight, Tiana would be truly alone. But then she thought about Jonathan, trapped and helpless, and she knew she couldn't live with herself if she didn't try to help. This was what she'd trained for in the military. This was why she'd learned to fight and protect people who couldn't protect themselves. Alicia took a deep breath and stepped out of the shadows. "Gentlemen," she said in her most authoritative voice, "I think you're in the wrong place." The three men spun around, clearly shocked to see a security guard. Their leader, a tall man with cold eyes, looked her up and down with obvious disdain. "Walk away, lady," he said. "This doesn't concern you." "Actually it does," Alicia replied, keeping her voice steady. "This is my building and Mr. Norman is under my protection." The man laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the concrete walls. "Your protection? You're a security guard with a radio and a flashlight. We're professionals. Walk away now and you won't get hurt." Alicia noticed that the other two men were moving to flank her, trying to surround her the same way they'd trapped Jonathan. She'd expected this and she was ready for it. "I'm going to ask you one more time to release Mr. Norman and leave the building," she said. "This is your last chance to do this peacefully." The leader's expression hardened. "Take her down," he ordered his companions. The first man rushed at her from the left, probably expecting her to panic or run. Instead, Alicia stepped forward to meet him, using his own momentum against him. She grabbed his arm, pivoted, and threw him over her shoulder in a perfect judo throw. He hit the concrete hard and stayed down, the wind knocked out of him. The second man was more careful, circling her and looking for an opening. Alicia kept her eyes on him while tracking the leader's position in her peripheral vision. She needed to end this quickly before they could coordinate their attacks. Jonathan watched in amazement as this security guard he'd never really noticed before fought off trained kidnappers like it was just another day at work. Who was this woman and where had she learned to fight like that? The second attacker made his move, lunging forward with his hands extended to grab her. Alicia sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, and twisted his arm behind his back in a control hold she'd perfected in the military. He cried out in pain and dropped to his knees. "Your move," she said to the leader, her breathing barely elevated despite the fight. The leader looked at his two companions, both down and out of the fight, then back at Alicia. For the first time since this had started, Jonathan saw uncertainty in the man's eyes. "This isn't over," the leader said, backing toward the exit. "We know who you are now. We know where you live." Alicia's blood ran cold, but she kept her expression neutral. "Get out of my building," she said. The leader helped his companions to their feet, and all three men retreated toward the stairwell. Alicia watched them go, her heart pounding now that the immediate danger was over. She'd won this round, but the leader's threat echoed in her mind. They knew where she lived. They knew about Tiana. "Ma'am," Jonathan said, his voice shaky with adrenaline and gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you." Alicia turned to face him and for the first time she really looked at Jonathan Norman. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe in his early 30s, with kind eyes and a face that showed genuine emotion rather than the cold calculation she'd expected from a billionaire CEO. "Are you hurt?" she asked, switching back into professional mode. "No," Jonathan said, straightening his tie with trembling hands. "Thanks to you. I'm sorry, I don't even know your name." "Alicia Thompson," she said, extending her hand. "I'm head of night security." Jonathan shook her hand, noticing how strong and steady her grip was. "Jonathan Norman. And I owe you my life." Jonathan stared at Alicia Thompson as if seeing her for the first time, which in many ways he was. He'd passed her in the hallways dozens of times over the past 6 months, exchanging polite nods and brief hellos, but he'd never really looked at her. Now, standing in the parking garage where she'd just saved his life, he couldn't understand how he'd failed to notice her presence. She was beautiful, that much was obvious, but it was more than that. There was a strength in her posture, a confidence in her movements that spoke of training and experience. Her dark eyes were alert and watchful, constantly scanning their surroundings even as she talked to him. "Mr. Norman," Alicia said, her voice still carrying the authority she'd used to face down the kidnappers. "We need to get you somewhere safe. Those men might come back with reinforcements." Jonathan nodded, though his mind was still struggling to process what had just happened. "You fought them off like it was nothing," he said. "Where did you learn to do that?" "Military police," Alicia replied, already moving toward the elevator. 8 years active duty. Now come on, we need to move." As they walked quickly across the garage, Jonathan found himself looking at Alicia with new eyes. Her security uniform was perfectly pressed, her badge gleaming, her radio positioned for quick access. Everything about her spoke of professionalism and competence, qualities he'd somehow missed during their brief previous encounters. "The elevator might not be safe," Alicia said as they reached it. "If they were planning this for months like they said, they might have people positioned throughout the building." "Then how do we get out?" Jonathan asked, surprised by how easily he'd accepted her leadership. In boardrooms and business meetings he was always the one making decisions, but right now he was grateful to let someone else take charge. "Service stairs," Alicia said, leading him toward a door marked, "Emergency Exit Only." "They lead directly to the street, and there's no way to block them from inside the building." As they climbed the stairs, Jonathan's expensive shoes echoing on the metal steps, he found himself studying Alicia's profile. She moved with the fluid grace of someone who stayed in excellent physical condition, and her dark skin seemed to glow under the harsh fluorescent lights of the stairwell. "Why did you help me?" he asked suddenly. Alicia paused on the landing between floors, turning to look at him. "What do you mean?" "You could have called for backup and waited safely in the security office," Jonathan said. "You put yourself in danger for someone you barely know." "Why?" For a moment, Alicia's professional mask slipped, and Jonathan saw something vulnerable in her expression. "Because it was the right thing to do," she said simply. "And because I couldn't live with myself if I'd let something happen to you when I had the skills to help." They reached the street level, and Alicia carefully opened the emergency exit door. The night air was cool and fresh after the stale atmosphere of the parking garage, and Jonathan took a deep breath, feeling truly safe for the first time in hours. "My car," he said, pointing toward the executive parking area. "I need to get my car." "No," Alicia said firmly. "They might be watching your vehicle. We'll take my car." She led him to an older sedan parked in the employee lot, a practical vehicle that looked well-maintained but unremarkable. As they got in, Jonathan noticed a child's car seat in the back and a few toys scattered on the floor. "You have a child?" he asked. "A daughter," Alicia replied, starting the engine. "Tiana. She's 8. Jonathan felt a pang of guilt. This woman had risked her life to save him, and she had a child depending on her. If something had happened to her in that parking garage, a little girl would have lost her mother. "Where is she now?" he asked. "With my neighbor," Alicia said, pulling out of the parking lot. "Mrs. Patterson watches her when I work nights." As they drove through the empty city streets, Jonathan found himself thinking about how different Alicia's life was from his own. She worked nights to support her daughter, probably struggling to make ends meet on a security guard salary, while he lived alone in a penthouse apartment that cost more per month than most people made in a year. "Those men," he said. "They knew things about my schedule, my security procedures. Someone inside the company has been feeding them information." Alicia nodded. "That's what I figured. Do you have any idea who it might be?" Jonathan ran through the possibilities in his mind. His assistant had access to his calendar, but she'd been with him for 5 years and had never shown any signs of disloyalty. His security team knew his movements, but they were all former law enforcement or military. His board members knew his business schedule, but they had no reason to want him kidnapped. "I don't know," he admitted. "I trust the people closest to me, but obviously that trust has been misplaced." "Where should I take you?" Alicia asked. "Your home might not be safe either." Jonathan realized he didn't have a good answer. His penthouse apartment was secure, but if someone had been watching him for months, they'd know where he lived. His few close friends would be sleeping, and he didn't want to put them in danger by involving them. "I have a hotel room," he said finally. "Downtown. I keep it under a false name for when I need privacy." Alicia raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. As they drove toward the hotel, Jonathan found himself stealing glances at her profile. There was something calming about her presence, something that made him feel safer than he had in years. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Sure." When you were in the military, did you ever have to do anything like that before? Fight off multiple attackers, I mean. Alicia was quiet for a moment, her hands steady on the steering wheel. A few times, she said finally. Military police deal with a lot of situations that require physical intervention. But nothing exactly like tonight. You were amazing, Jonathan said. I've never seen anything like it. I was trained for it, Alicia replied, but Jonathan could hear a note of pride in her voice. The military teaches you to stay calm under pressure and use your opponent's strength against them. They pulled up in front of the hotel, a discreet luxury establishment that catered to business travelers who valued privacy. Jonathan reached for his wallet, then realized he'd left his briefcase in the parking garage. I don't have my wallet, he said. Or my keys or my phone. Everything was in my briefcase. I'll get you a room, Alicia said. Company credit card. We can sort out the details later. As they walked through the hotel lobby, Jonathan was acutely aware of how they must look. Him in his expensive but rumpled suit, her in her security uniform, both of them showing signs of stress and exhaustion. But the night clerk, used to dealing with unusual situations, checked them in without comment. 2 rooms, Alicia said firmly when Jonathan started to protest. I'm staying to make sure you're safe. In the elevator, Jonathan found himself studying Alicia's reflection in the polished metal doors. She was beautiful, but it was her strength and competence that attracted him more than her looks. He'd dated plenty of beautiful women, but none of them had ever made him feel the way Alicia did right now. I don't know how to thank you, he said as they reached their floor. Just doing my job, Alicia replied, but her eyes met his in the reflection, and Jonathan saw something there that made his pulse quicken. This goes way beyond your job, he said. You saved my life, and you're continuing to protect me even though the immediate danger is over. Alicia turned to face him as the elevator doors opened. Those men made threats, she said. They know who I am now, which means they might know about Tiana. This isn't over for either of us. Jonathan felt a cold fear settle in his stomach. Not for himself, but for Alicia and her daughter. I won't let anything happen to you or Tiana, he said. I promise. Alicia studied his face as if trying to determine whether he meant it. You can't make promises like that, she said quietly. You don't know what kind of people we're dealing with. Then tell me, Jonathan said. Help me understand what we're up against. As they walked down the hallway toward their rooms, Alicia seemed to be weighing her words carefully. Professional kidnappers don't usually give up after one failed attempt, she said. They'll regroup, plan better, and try again. And now they see me as a threat to eliminate. Jonathan stopped in front of his room door, the key card heavy in his hand. What do? We figure out who's been feeding them information, Alicia said. And we make sure they can't try again. Jonathan asked. Alicia met his eyes directly. I'm in this now whether I like it or not. Those men threatened my daughter. That was a mistake. There was something in her voice, a cold determination that made Jonathan understand why the kidnappers had retreated. This woman was a protector, a warrior, and she would do whatever it took to keep her child safe. Get some sleep, she said, unlocking her own door. Tomorrow we figure out our next move. As Jonathan entered his room, he found himself thinking not about the kidnapping attempt or the danger they faced, but about Alicia Thompson. In one night, she'd gone from being a security guard he barely noticed to the most important person in his world. And he was beginning to realize that his feelings for her went far beyond gratitude. The next morning, Jonathan woke to sunlight streaming through the hotel room curtains and the sound of his stomach growling. He'd slept badly, his dreams filled with masked figures and the memory of Alicia's fierce protection. When he checked his phone, which Alicia had retrieved from building security along with his other belongings, he found 17 missed calls from his assistant and 43 unread emails. A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Mr. Norman? It's Alicia. I brought coffee and breakfast. Jonathan opened the door to find Alicia looking refreshed and alert despite having gotten as little sleep as he had. She wore civilian clothes now, jeans and a soft blue sweater that made her look younger and more approachable than her security uniform had. How did you manage to get my things? He asked, accepting the coffee gratefully. I called my supervisor early this morning, Alicia said, settling into the chair by the window. Told him you needed your personal items retrieved from the parking garage. He was happy to help, especially after the police filled him in on what happened. Jonathan sat on the edge of the bed, studying her face. You look tired. Did you sleep at all? A little, Alicia admitted. I spent most of the night thinking about what those men said. About how they'd been watching you for months, How they knew your schedule and security procedures. And? Jonathan prompted. And I think I know how they got their information, Alicia said. But you're not going to like it. Jonathan set down his coffee cup, his appetite suddenly gone. Tell me. I've been reviewing the security footage from the past few weeks, Alicia said. There's been a pattern of someone accessing the building after hours, someone with legitimate credentials who wouldn't trigger any alarms. Who? Robert Chin, your head of security, Alicia said quietly. He's been coming in on weekends, accessing files he shouldn't have access to, and meeting with people who aren't on any visitor logs. Jonathan felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. Robert had been with the company for 3 years, had been personally recommended by a trusted friend. Are you sure? I pulled his personnel file, Alicia said. He's been having financial problems. His wife's medical bills, his daughter's college tuition, a mortgage he can't afford. Someone offered him enough money to solve all his problems. How much? Jonathan asked. Enough to make him forget his loyalty to you, Alicia replied. I'm sorry, Mr. Norman. I know you trusted him. Jonathan stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. How many other people in his life were one financial crisis away from betraying him? How many of his employees, his friends, his business partners were just waiting for the right offer? There's something else, Alicia said. I did some research on the kidnappers. The leader, the one who made the threats, his name is Vincent Torres. He's a freelance operative who works for whoever pays him enough. Who hired him? That's where it gets complicated, Alicia said. Torres has worked for several of your business competitors over the years. Corporate espionage mostly, but this is the first time he's moved into kidnapping. Jonathan turned back to face her. You found all this out in one night? I still have contacts in law enforcement, Alicia said. Military police gives you a network of people who know how to find information quickly. Jonathan sat back down, closer to her this time. I don't understand how you can be so calm about all this. These people threatened you and your daughter. I'm not calm, Alicia said quietly. I'm terrified. But being scared doesn't help anyone. Action helps. What kind of action? We need to neutralize the threat, Alicia said. Which means we need to find out who's really behind this and stop them before they try again. Jonathan studied her face, seeing the determination there but also the worry she was trying to hide. Tell me about Tiana, he said suddenly. Alicia's expression softened. What do you want to know? Everything, Jonathan said. If I'm going to help protect her, I need to understand what's at stake. Alicia was quiet for a moment, then pulled out her phone and showed him a photo. The little girl in the picture had her mother's beautiful dark eyes and a smile that could light up a room. She was wearing a science fair ribbon and holding a model volcano. She's brilliant, Alicia said, her voice filled with pride. Straight A's, loves science and math, wants to be an astronaut when she grows up. She's the reason I left the military, the reason I work so hard, the reason I get up every morning. Where's her father? Jonathan asked gently. Gone, Alicia said, her voice hardening. He left when Tiana was 6. Said he wasn't ready to be a father, that he needed to find himself. I haven't heard from him since. Jonathan felt a surge of anger at a man he'd never met. I'm sorry. I'm not, Alicia said firmly. Tiana and I are better off without him. We take care of each other. That's why you fight so hard, Jonathan said, understanding flooding through him. You're not just protecting yourself, you're protecting her future. Everything I do is for her, Alicia said. The night job, the extra security training, the money I save every month for her college fund. She's going to have opportunities one never had. Jonathan looked at the photo again, seeing not just a beautiful child but the center of Alicia's world. What does she know about what happened last night? Nothing yet, Alicia said. Mrs. Patterson thinks I had to work late. But I'll have to tell her something soon. She's smart enough to know when something's wrong. Where is she now? At school, Alicia said. I dropped her off this morning, but I had to lie to her about why I looked so tired. I hate lying to her. Jonathan reached over and took her hand, surprised by how natural the gesture felt. We'll figure this out, he said. I won't let anything happen to either of you. Alicia looked down at their joined hands, then back up at his face. Why do you care so much? Last night I was just a security guard you barely knew. Because you saved my life, Jonathan said. Because you're brave and strong and you care about people. Because you're an amazing mother who would do anything for her daughter. And because you're attracted to me, Alicia said quietly. Jonathan felt his face flush. Yes, he admitted. But it's more than that. You're different from anyone I've ever met. Different how? Real, Jonathan said. You don't want anything from me except to do the right thing. You're not impressed by my money or my position. You see me as a person, not a bank account. Alicia studied his face, seeing something there that made her pulse quicken. Jonathan, this is complicated. You're my boss, you're wealthy, you live in a completely different world than I do. None of that matters, Jonathan said. What matters is that you're the first person in years who's made me feel like I'm worth something beyond my net worth. Before Alicia could respond, her phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it and her face went pale. What is it? Jonathan asked. Mrs. Patterson, Alicia said, her voice tight with worry. She says there's been a man asking questions about me and Tiana in the neighborhood. Asking which apartment we live in, what time Tiana gets home from school. Jonathan stood up quickly. We need to get to her now. The school is secure, Alicia said, but her hands were shaking as she gathered her things. They have good security procedures. But after school? I'll have my driver meet us downstairs, Jonathan said, already reaching for his phone. We'll get to the school before dismissal time. As they hurried toward the elevator, Alicia's phone rang. She answered it quickly, her voice professional despite her obvious fear. Mrs. Patterson? Is everything okay? There was a pause, then Alicia's face went even paler. What do you mean he's still there? Can you see him from your window? Jonathan watched Alicia's expression with growing alarm. Whatever Mrs. Patterson was telling her, it wasn't good news. Lock your doors and don't answer them for anyone, Alicia said into the phone. I'm on my way to get Tiana from school and then we'll figure out what to do. Don't worry, Mrs. Patterson. This isn't your fault. She hung up and turned to Jonathan. There's a man sitting in a car across from our apartment building. He's been there for 2 hours just watching. Mrs. Patterson tried to get a license plate number, but he's parked too far away. Torres is moving fast, Jonathan said as they got into the elevator. He's trying to pressure us by threatening Tiana. It's working, Alicia said, her professional calm cracking slightly. If anything happens to her. Nothing will happen to her, Jonathan said firmly. I promise you that. You can't promise that, Alicia said. You don't know what these people are capable of. Then tell me, Jonathan said. What are we really dealing with here? Alicia was quiet until they reached the lobby, then she spoke in a low voice as they walked toward the waiting car. Vincent Torres isn't just a kidnapper, she said. He's a specialist in psychological warfare. He breaks people down by threatening what they love most. Your daughter. My daughter, Alicia confirmed. He knows that if he can make me afraid for her safety, he can control me. Force me to back down, maybe even turn me against you. Jonathan helped her into the car, his mind racing. What would you do if he gave you an ultimatum? Him or Tiana? Alicia met his eyes directly. I'd choose Tiana every time. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. I wouldn't expect anything else, Jonathan said. She's your daughter. But that's not going to happen because we're going to stop him first. As the car pulled away from the hotel, Jonathan's phone rang. The caller ID showed his assistant's number. Mr. Norman? His assistant's voice was tight with stress. I've been trying to reach you all morning. There's been a situation. What kind of situation? Robert Chen called in sick today, but building security says he was here an hour ago. He accessed your office and took files from your safe. Jonathan exchanged a look with Alicia. What files? I don't know. He had the combination, so the system shows it as an authorized access. But I thought you should know. Thank you, Sarah. Cancel all my appointments for the rest of the week. I'm dealing with a security issue. Is everything all right, Mr. Norman? It will be, Jonathan said, hoping he sounded more confident than he felt. Just keep the office running smoothly until I get back. He hung up and turned to Alicia. Chin is making his move. He's probably delivering those files to Torres as we speak. What was in your safe? Alicia asked. Personal information. Financial records, property deeds, investment portfolios. Everything someone would need to know about my assets and how to access them. And your personal life? Jonathan's face darkened. Everything. Photos, correspondence, personal documents. If Torres has that information, he knows about every person I care about, every place I go, every routine I follow. Including your connection to me now, Alicia said quietly. Including that, Jonathan agreed. Which means he knows we're working together and he'll try to use that against us. The car pulled up in front of Tiana's school, a modest elementary building with a playground full of children. Jonathan could see Alicia's tension ease slightly at the sight of the normal, safe environment. "There," she said, pointing to a group of children playing near the main entrance. "That's her class. Tiana's the one in the red jacket." Jonathan followed her gaze and saw a little girl with braids and a bright smile, completely absorbed in a game with her friends. She looked exactly like her mother, with the same intelligent eyes and confident posture. "She's beautiful," he said. "She's everything," Alicia replied. "Jonathan, if Torres tries to use her to get to me?" "He won't get the chance," Jonathan said. "I'm going to hire a private security team to protect both of you." "I can't afford that kind of protection," Alicia said. "You don't have to. I can and I will." Alicia turned to study his face. "Why are you doing this? You barely know us." "Because it's the right thing to do," Jonathan said, echoing her words from the night before. "And because I care about you. Both of you." Before Alicia could respond, the school bell rang and children began streaming out of the building. Tiana spotted her mother immediately and ran toward the car, her backpack bouncing with each step. "Mommy," she called out, her voice bright with excitement. "Mrs. Johnson said I can enter the science fair again this year. Can we start working on my project tonight?" Alicia got out of the car and caught her daughter in a fierce hug. "Of course we can, baby. But first, I want you to meet someone." Tiana looked curiously at Jonathan as he stepped out of the car. "Are you Mommy's friend?" "I'm her boss," Jonathan said, kneeling down to her level. "My name is Jonathan. Your mother is the bravest person I know." Tiana beamed with pride. "She used to be a soldier," she said. "She taught me how to tie knots and do push-ups." "Did she now?" Jonathan said, smiling at the image of Alicia teaching her daughter military skills. "What else did she teach you?" "How to be strong," Tiana said seriously. "And how to help people who need help." Jonathan glanced up at Alicia, seeing the love and pride in her eyes as she watched her daughter. This was what she was fighting for, this innocent child who saw the world as a place where good people helped each other. "Tiana," Alicia said gently, "we need to go stay somewhere else for a few days. Like a vacation." "Why?" Tiana asked, her intelligent eyes moving between her mother and Jonathan. "Because there are some bad people who want to hurt Mommy's boss," Alicia said carefully. "And we need to stay safe until the police catch them." Tiana's expression grew serious. "Are you going to catch them, Mommy?" "We're going to try," Alicia said. "Can I help?" Tiana asked. "By being brave and doing exactly what Mommy tells you to do," Jonathan said. "Can you do that?" Tiana nodded solemnly. "I can be brave. Mommy taught me how." As they got back into the car, Jonathan felt a fierce protectiveness toward this little girl and her mother. Torres had made a mistake when he'd threatened them. He'd given Jonathan something to fight for beyond just his own survival. "Where are we going?" Tiana asked as the car pulled away from the school. "Somewhere safe," Alicia said. "With lots of security and room service." "Like a hotel?" "Like a hotel," Jonathan confirmed. "Would you like that?" Tiana's eyes lit up. "Can we order ice cream from room service?" "As much as you want," Jonathan said, earning a grateful smile from Alicia. As they drove through the city, Jonathan found himself thinking about how much his life had changed in less than 24 hours. Yesterday he'd been a lonely billionaire with no real connections to anyone. Today he was part of a family, even if it was a temporary arrangement born of necessity. But looking at Alicia's reflection in the car window, seeing the way she held her daughter close, he hoped it might become something more permanent. These two people had shown him what was truly worth fighting for, and he wasn't going to let Torres or anyone else take that away from them. The luxury hotel suite Jonathan had booked was bigger than Alicia's entire apartment, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city and furniture that probably cost more than she made in a year. Tiana stood in the middle of the living room, turning in slow circles to take it all in. "Mommy, this is like a palace," she whispered as if speaking too loudly might break the spell. "It's just temporary, baby," Alicia said, but she was impressed despite herself. She'd never stayed anywhere this nice, and seeing her daughter's wonder made her heart ache with the knowledge of how different their lives were from Jonathan's. "The security team will be here within the hour," Jonathan said, hanging up his phone. "Former Secret Service agents, highly trained, completely trustworthy." "How much is this going to cost?" Alicia asked quietly. "Don't worry about it," Jonathan said. "Your safety is worth more than money." "Easy for you to say," Alicia replied. "You have unlimited money. I have a daughter to raise and bills to pay." Jonathan stopped what he was doing and looked at her directly. "Alicia, I'm not trying to control your life or make you feel dependent on me. I'm trying to keep you and Tiana alive. Before Alicia could respond, there was a knock at the door. Jonathan checked the peephole, then opened it to reveal a woman in her 40s with short gray hair and the kind of alert posture that marked her as former law enforcement. Mr. Norman? I'm Agent Sarah Martinez. I'll be heading up your security detail. Thank you for coming so quickly, Jonathan said, stepping aside to let her in. Agent Martinez's eyes immediately went to Alicia and Tiana, assessing them with professional efficiency. Miss Thompson, I presume? I've read your file. Military police, excellent record, commendations for bravery under fire. You have a file on me? Alicia asked. I have files on everyone connected to this situation, Martinez replied. It's necessary for providing effective protection. Tiana had been watching this exchange with wide eyes. Are you a police officer? She asked Martinez. I used to be, Martinez said, her stern expression softening slightly. Now I help keep people safe from bad guys. Like my mommy does, Tiana said proudly. Exactly like your mommy does, Martinez agreed. And I hear you're going to help us by being very brave. Tiana nodded seriously. I can be brave. I practice every day. Martinez pulled out a tablet and showed them a security plan. We'll have 2 agents outside the suite at all times, one in the lobby and one monitoring the hotel's security cameras. Miss Thompson, given your background, I'd like you to be part of the security team rather than just a protectee. What does that mean? Alicia asked. It means you'll be armed and have an active role in protecting Mr. Norman and your daughter, Martinez said. If you're willing. Alicia looked at Jonathan, then at Tiana, who was exploring the suite's kitchen. What about my regular job? Consider yourself on special assignment, Jonathan said. Full salary plus hazard pay. I don't want hazard pay, Alicia said. I want my daughter safe. Then let's make that happen, Martinez said. But first, I need to brief you on what we're dealing with. She pulled up photos on her tablet. Vincent Torres, age 42, former military contractor, now freelance operative. He's wanted in connection with 3 kidnappings, 2 corporate espionage cases and 1 murder. Murder? Alicia said, her voice dropping to a whisper. A witness who was going to testify against one of his clients, Martinez said. Torres doesn't leave loose ends. Jonathan felt his blood run cold. Are you saying he'll kill us to keep us quiet? I'm saying he'll do whatever his client pays him to do, Martinez replied. Which is why we need to identify who hired him. We know Robert Chin was feeding him information, Alicia said. But Chin couldn't afford to hire someone like Torres. He's working for someone else. Agreed, Martinez said. I've been looking into your business rivals, Mr. Norman. There are several who would benefit from your disappearance. Like who? Sterling International has been trying to acquire your company for months, Martinez said. Davidson Holdings lost a major contract to you last year. Meridian Industries has been underbid by you on 3 consecutive projects. Jonathan shook his head. Business competition is one thing, but kidnapping? That's crossing a line I can't imagine any legitimate businessman would cross. Money makes people do desperate things, Martinez said. And you're worth a lot of money both personally and professionally. Tiana appeared in the doorway, having finished exploring the kitchen. Mommy, can we order pizza? They have a menu with pictures. Of course, baby, Alicia said, grateful for the interruption. Why don't you pick out what you want? As Tiana settled on the couch with the room service menu, Martinez continued her briefing in lower tones. Torres is likely to escalate his tactics. The failed kidnapping will make him angry, and angry operatives make mistakes. What kind of mistakes? Jonathan asked. He'll get impatient, take bigger risks, maybe show himself when he should stay hidden, Martinez said. That's when we'll get our chance to take him down. What about Chin? Alicia asked. Can we use him to get to Torres? He's disappeared, Martinez said. Left his apartment sometime last night, hasn't been seen since. We're assuming Torres either has him hidden somewhere or he's dead, Jonathan finished. It's possible, Martinez admitted. Torres doesn't like to leave witnesses. Alicia looked over at her daughter, who was happily reading the dessert menu. How long do we have to live like this? Until we neutralize the threat, Martinez said. Could be days, could be weeks. Tiana has school, Alicia said. She has friends, activities, a normal life. I can't keep her locked up indefinitely. I understand, Martinez said. But her safety has to come first. Mommy, Tiana called out, they have chocolate cake with gold sprinkles. Can we order it? Sure, baby, Alicia said, forcing a smile. Whatever you want. As the evening wore on, Alicia found herself watching her daughter with a mixture of love and worry. Tiana was adaptable, treating their hotel stay like an adventure, but Alicia knew the novelty would wear off quickly. Her daughter needed stability, routine, the comfort of her own room and her own things. She's handling this well, Jonathan observed, sitting beside Alicia on the couch while Tiana watched cartoons. She's resilient, Alicia said. She's had to be. Moving here, starting a new school, adjusting to me working nights. She's gotten used to change. That's because she has you, Jonathan said. You make her feel safe no matter what's happening around her. Alicia looked at him, surprised by the emotion in his voice. You sound like you understand something about that. My parents died when I was 12, Jonathan said quietly. Car accident. I went to live with my aunt and uncle and they were good people, but they never made me feel like I belonged. I spent years feeling like I was just existing. I'm sorry, Alicia said. That must have been terrible. It was, Jonathan said. But watching you with Tiana, seeing how loved and secure she is despite everything that's happened, it makes me understand what I missed. Alicia felt her heart ache for the lonely boy he'd been, and for the man he'd become. Is that why you work so much? To avoid feeling alone? Partly, Jonathan admitted. Work was something I could control, something I could be good at. But it's not a substitute for family. No, Alicia said softly. It's not. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Tiana laugh at the cartoon on the screen. There was something so normal about the moment, so peaceful, that Alicia could almost forget about the danger surrounding them. Alicia, Jonathan said suddenly, when this is over, would you consider staying? Working for me permanently, I mean. As what? Head of security, Jonathan said. You're overqualified for your current position, and I need someone I can trust completely. That's a big jump from night security guard, Alicia said. You've already proven you can handle it, Jonathan said. And the salary would be enough to give Tiana everything she needs. College fund, private school if you want, whatever she needs to reach her dreams. Alicia felt tempted by the offer, but something held her back. Jonathan, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I can't let you solve all my problems with money. Why not? Because I need to know that I can take care of my daughter on my own, Alicia said. I need to know that I'm strong enough, capable enough, worthy enough to give her a good life. You've already proven all of that, Jonathan said. You're the strongest person I know. But I'm also attracted to you, Alicia said quietly. And mixing business with personal feelings is dangerous. Jonathan's pulse quickened. So you admit you're attracted to me? I'd have to be blind not to be, Alicia said. But that doesn't mean acting on it is smart. Why not? Because you're a billionaire and I'm a single mother with a high school education, Alicia said. Because we come from different worlds and want different things. What do you think I want? Jonathan asked. I don't know, Alicia admitted. But I know what I want. I want stability for my daughter. I want to be able to provide for her without depending on anyone else. I want to be a good example of what a strong woman looks like. And you think being with me would compromise that? I think being with any man would compromise that right now, Alicia said. I need to prove to myself that I can do this alone. Jonathan felt disappointed but not surprised. I understand, he said. But I want you to know that I don't see you as someone who needs rescuing. I see you as someone who rescued me. Before Alicia could respond, Martinez appeared in the doorway. We've got movement, she said. Torres has been spotted in the hotel lobby. Alicia immediately stood up, her body going into alert mode. How did he find us? Unknown, Martinez said. But he's not alone. 3 men all armed trying to look like hotel guests. What do we do? Jonathan asked. We move, Martinez said. There's a service elevator that leads to the parking garage. We can get you out through there. Tiana, Alicia called softly, come here baby. We need to go. Tiana looked up from her cartoon, seeing the tension in her mother's face. Are the bad men here? Yes, Alicia said, but we're going to stay safe. Remember what I taught you about being brave. Tiana nodded and quickly gathered her backpack. I'm ready, Mommy. As they prepared to leave the suite, Alicia felt a fierce determination settle over her. Torres had made a mistake by threatening her daughter. Now she was going to show him exactly what kind of enemy he'd made. The safe house was a modest suburban home that looked completely ordinary from the outside, which Martinez explained was exactly the point. Sometimes the best security is invisibility, she said as they settled into the living room. It had been 3 days since Torres had tracked them to the hotel, and Alicia could see the strain beginning to show on Tiana. Her daughter was trying to be brave, but she kept asking when they could go home, when she could see her friends, when everything would go back to normal. "I don't like this house," Tiana said, sitting cross-legged on the unfamiliar couch. "It smells like old people." "It's temporary, baby," Alicia said, settling beside her. "Just until the police catch the bad men." "When will that be?" "Soon," Alicia said, hoping she sounded more confident than she felt. Jonathan watched this exchange from across the room, his heart aching for both of them. He'd been making calls all morning trying to identify who was behind the kidnapping attempts, but so far they'd hit dead ends. Chin had vanished completely, and Torres was too professional to leave obvious traces. "Tiana," he said, "would you like to help me with something?" The little girl looked up with interest. "What kind of help?" "I'm trying to solve a puzzle," Jonathan said. "And I could use someone who's good at science and math." Tiana's eyes lit up. "I'm very good at puzzles. Mrs. Johnson says I'm the best in my class." Jonathan pulled out his laptop and showed her a spreadsheet. "I need to figure out patterns in these numbers. When certain people called certain other people and how often." "Like a code?" Tiana asked, scooting closer to look at the screen. "Exactly like a code," Jonathan said. "Think you can help me crack it?" For the next hour, Jonathan and Tiana worked together, with Tiana pointing out patterns that Jonathan had missed. Her young mind approached the data differently, without the assumptions and biases that had been clouding his analysis. "Look," Tiana said, pointing at a series of numbers. "These calls happen every Tuesday and Thursday at the same time. That's not random." "You're right," Jonathan said, genuinely impressed. "That's very good detective work." Alicia watched them work together, surprised by how naturally Jonathan interacted with her daughter. Most of the men she dated had been awkward around Tiana, either trying too hard or not trying at all. But Jonathan treated her like a capable person whose opinions mattered. "Mommy," Tiana said without looking up from the laptop, "I like Jonathan. He's nice." "I'm glad you like him, baby," Alicia said. "Is he your boyfriend?" Tiana asked with the directness that only children possessed. Alicia felt her face flush. "We're just friends, Tiana." "But you like him," Tiana said matter-of-factly. "You get that look when you watch him." "What look?" "The same look you get when you watch me at the science fair," Tiana said. "Happy and proud." Jonathan had to hide a smile at Tiana's observation. Out of the mouths of babes, he thought. Children saw things adults tried to hide from themselves. "Tiana," Alicia said, "why don't you go explore the backyard? Agent Martinez said it was safe." "Okay," Tiana said, but she gave her mother a knowing look before heading outside. Once they were alone, Jonathan turned to Alicia. "She's incredibly bright. And perceptive. Too perceptive sometimes," Alicia said. "She sees everything. Including the fact that you care about me?" Jonathan asked gently. Alicia was quiet for a moment, watching her daughter through the window. "This isn't real, Jonathan. We're living in a bubble, thrown together by circumstances. When this is over, when we go back to our normal lives, whatever this is between us will fade." "Will it?" Jonathan asked. "Because I don't think what I feel for you is going to disappear when the danger passes." "What do you feel for me?" Alicia asked. Jonathan moved closer to her, close enough that she could see the sincerity in his eyes. "I feel like I've been waiting my whole life to meet you," he said. "Like everything that happened before was just preparation for this moment." "That's the adrenaline talking," Alicia said, but her voice lacked conviction. "No," Jonathan said firmly. "It's not. I've been in dangerous situations before, Alicia. I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. How do you feel about me?" "Like you're the missing piece I didn't know I needed," Jonathan said. "Like you make me want to be better than I am." Alicia felt her resolve weakening. "Jonathan, I can't afford to fall for you. I have too much to lose." "What if I told you that you wouldn't lose anything?" Jonathan asked. "What if I told you that I want to build something real with you, something that includes Tiana and honors the life you've already built?" "I'd say you don't know what you're talking about," Alicia said. "You live in penthouses and private jets. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment and drive a 10-year-old car. Money doesn't make a life," Jonathan said. "You've taught me that. You and Tiana have more real happiness in your little apartment than I've ever had in any of my expensive homes." "But that's just it," Alicia said. "You're romanticizing my life because it's different from yours. But the reality is harder than you think. It's worrying about paying for Tiana's school supplies, working double shifts to afford her birthday party, lying awake at night wondering if I'm giving her enough. Then let me help, Jonathan said. Not because I think you need rescuing but because I want to be part of your life. I want to worry about Tiana's school supplies and plan her birthday parties. You say that now, Alicia said, but what happens when the novelty wears off? When you realize that raising a child is 90% routine and 10% excitement. Then I'll love the routine, Jonathan said. I'll love making breakfast and helping with homework and reading bedtime stories. I'll love all of it because it's with you. Alicia looked out the window at Tiana, who was examining flowers in the garden with the same scientific intensity she brought to everything. She's been hurt before, she said quietly. When her father left, she asked me every day for months when he was coming back. I can't put her through that again. I'm not her father, Jonathan said. I'm not going anywhere. You can't promise that, Alicia said. Nobody can promise that. You're right, Jonathan said. But I can promise that I'll never leave by choice. I can promise that if something happens to me, it won't be because I decided you and Tiana weren't worth fighting for. Alicia felt tears prick her eyes. Why are you saying all this? Because I love you, Jonathan said simply. I love your strength and your dedication and the way you make me feel like I could be the man you deserve. I love watching you with Tiana, seeing the kind of mother you are. I love the way you make me want to be better. Jonathan. I know it's too soon, he said. I know we're in an impossible situation. But I also know that what I feel for you is real and I think what you feel for me is real too. Before Alicia could respond, the back door opened and Tiana came running in, her face flushed with excitement. Mommy, there's a butterfly garden back there. And Agent Martinez says butterflies are pollinators, which means they help plants reproduce. Can we plant flowers when we go home so the butterflies will visit us? Of course we can, baby, Alicia said, grateful for the interruption. We'll plant a whole garden. Can Jonathan help? Tiana asked. He seems like he'd be good at gardening. I don't know anything about gardening, Jonathan admitted, but I'd love to learn. I'll teach you, Tiana said seriously. It's all about understanding what plants need to grow. Just like understanding what people need to be happy. Alicia and Jonathan exchanged a look over Tiana's head. The child's innocent wisdom had a way of cutting straight to the heart of things. What do you think people need to be happy? Jonathan asked Tiana. Love, Tiana said without hesitation. And someone who makes them feel safe. And ice cream sometimes. That sounds about right, Jonathan said, smiling at Alicia. And family, Tiana added. Family is the most important thing. Right, Mommy? Right, baby, Alicia said, her voice soft with emotion. Good, Tiana said. Because I think we're going to be a family now. You and me and Jonathan. Tiana. Alicia began, but her daughter was already heading back outside. She's decided, Jonathan said quietly. The question is, have you? Alicia watched her daughter through the window, seeing the happiness in her face as she explored the garden. Tiana had been through so much change in her young life, but she'd never lost her ability to hope, to love, to believe in the possibility of good things. I'm scared, Alicia admitted. So am I, Jonathan said. But I'm more scared of losing you than I am of taking the risk. What if we mess it up? Then we'll figure it out together, Jonathan said. That's what families do. Alicia turned to face him, seeing the love and determination in his eyes. When this is over, she said slowly, when we're safe and back to our normal lives, ask me again. Ask you what? If I want to try building something real with you, Alicia said. If I want to see what we could be together. Jonathan smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him since this whole ordeal began. I'll ask you every day if I have to. Once will be enough, Alicia said, and for the first time she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could have a future together. The attack came at dawn, when the safe house was at its most vulnerable. Alicia woke to the sound of glass breaking and immediately rolled out of bed, her military training kicking in before her mind was fully awake. She could hear muffled shouts from downstairs and the distinctive sound of a struggle. Tiana, she whispered, shaking her daughter awake. Baby, we need to go. Right now. Tiana's eyes snapped open, instantly alert. 3 days of living in fear had taught her to wake up ready to run. Are they here? Yes, Alicia said, grabbing their pre-packed emergency bag. Remember what we practiced? Tiana nodded, her face pale but determined. They'd rehearsed this scenario every day, planning escape routes and safe spots. Now it was time to put that training to use. Alicia opened the bedroom door carefully, listening for sounds from the hallway. The house was eerily quiet, which meant either the security team had neutralized the threat or they were already dead. Neither option filled her with confidence. "Stay behind me," she whispered to Tiana. "Step where I step, stop when I stop." They crept down the hallway toward the back stairs, avoiding the main staircase where the sounds of struggle had come from. Alicia's heart pounded as she thought about Jonathan, who was sleeping in the room next to theirs. Was he safe? Had they taken him already? As they reached the top of the back stairs, Alicia heard a voice she recognized. Vincent Torres, speaking in the calm, controlled tone that had haunted her dreams for days. "Mr. Norman, you're making this more difficult than it needs to be," Torres was saying. "Just sign the papers and this will all be over." "Where's Alicia?" Jonathan's voice, strained but defiant. "Where's her daughter?" "They're safe," Torres replied. "For now. But their safety depends on your cooperation." Alicia felt a surge of anger. Torres was using her and Tiana as leverage, just as she'd feared he would. But he'd made a mistake by assuming she was helpless. She turned to Tiana, who was watching her with wide, trusting eyes. "Baby, I need you to be very brave for me. Can you do that?" Tiana nodded. "I need you to go to the panic room we found yesterday," Alicia said. "The one behind the bookshelf in the study. Lock yourself in and don't come out until I come to get you." "What about you?" "I'm going to help Jonathan," Alicia said. "But I can't do that if I'm worried about you. I need to know you're safe." "I don't want to leave you, Mommy," Tiana whispered, tears starting to form in her eyes. "I know, baby," Alicia said, cupping her daughter's face gently. "But remember what I taught you about being a soldier? Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is follow orders, even when you're scared." Tiana wiped her eyes and straightened her shoulders. "Yes, ma'am." "That's my girl," Alicia said, her heart breaking and swelling with pride at the same time. "I love you more than anything in the world." "I love you too, Mommy. Be careful." Alicia watched her daughter disappear down the back stairs, moving with the quiet grace she'd taught her. Once she was sure Tiana was safe, Alicia turned her attention to the voices coming from the living room. She crept down the main stairs, staying low and using the banister for cover. Through the gaps in the railing she could see the scene below. Jonathan was seated in a chair, his hands zip-tied behind his back, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. Torres stood in front of him, holding a tablet and stylus. "The transfer documents are very simple," Torres was saying. "Just your signature and ownership of Norman Industries transfers to my client. Think of it as a very expensive ransom payment." "I'm not signing anything," Jonathan said. "And when the police get here you'll spend the rest of your life in prison." Torres laughed. "The police aren't coming, Mr. Norman. We've taken care of your security team, and this house is quite isolated. No one knows where you are." "I know where they are," Alicia said, stepping into view with her hands raised. "And I'm here to make a trade." Torres spun around, his gun immediately trained on her. "Miss Thompson, how considerate of you to join us." "Let Jonathan go," Alicia said. "Take me instead. I'm the one who interfered with your plans." "Alicia, no," Jonathan said urgently. "Get out of here." "I'm afraid it's not that simple," Torres said. "You see, we need Mr. Norman to sign these documents. But we also can't leave witnesses. So we'll be taking both of you." "And my daughter?" Torres's smile was cold. "Children are such a complication, aren't they? Don't worry, Miss Thompson. We'll make it quick." Alicia felt ice flow through her veins. This man was talking about killing her 8-year-old daughter like it was a minor inconvenience. In that moment, all her military training, all her protective instincts, all her love for Tiana crystallized into a single burning purpose. "You made a mistake," she said quietly. "What mistake is that?" "You threatened my child," Alicia said, and then she moved. Years of military training had taught her to assess her environment quickly. She'd noticed the heavy crystal vase on the side table, the positioning of Torres's men, the fact that they'd gotten overconfident with their apparent success. She used all of it. Alicia dove to her left, grabbing the vase and hurling it at the nearest gunman in one fluid motion. As he ducked, she rolled behind the couch, using it for cover as bullets shattered the lamp where she'd been standing. "Alive!" Torres shouted. "I need them both alive." That gave Alicia the advantage she needed. She popped up from behind the couch, grabbed a heavy book from the coffee table, and threw it at the second gunman's hand. His gun went flying, clattering across the hardwood floor. Jonathan, meanwhile, had been working frantically to free his hands. The zip tie was cutting into his wrists, but adrenaline made him ignore the pain. As soon as his hands were free, he launched himself at Torres, tackling him to the ground. The two men struggled for control of Torres's gun, rolling across the floor. Jonathan was younger and motivated by desperation, but Torres was trained for this kind of combat. The gun went off, the bullet embedding itself in the ceiling. Alicia had neutralized one gunman and was grappling with the second when she heard the gunshot. Her heart stopped as she thought it might be Jonathan, but then she heard his grunt of effort as he continued to fight. She broke free from her opponent and grabbed his fallen weapon, training it on Torres just as he managed to pin Jonathan down. "Let him go," she said, her voice deadly calm. Torres looked up at her, the gun pressed against Jonathan's temple. "Drop your weapon, Miss Thompson, or Mr. Norman dies right now." Alicia kept her gun trained on Torres, her hands steady despite the chaos around them. "You pull that trigger and I'll put 3 bullets in you before you hit the ground." "But Mr. Norman will still be dead," Torres pointed out. "True," Alicia said. "But so will you. And my daughter will be safe, which is all I really care about." Jonathan could see the calculation in Torres's eyes, the man weighing his options. "Alicia," he said quietly, "whatever you're thinking, don't. I'm not worth it." "Yes, you are," Alicia said without taking her eyes off Torres. "You're worth everything." For a moment the room was frozen in a deadly tableau. Then Torres made his choice. He shifted his gun away from Jonathan's head, trying to bring it to bear on Alicia. It was the opening she'd been waiting for. Alicia's shot took Torres in the shoulder, spinning him around and sending his gun flying. Jonathan rolled away as Torres hit the ground, clutching his wounded arm. "Agent Martinez." Alicia called out, hoping the security team leader was still alive somewhere in the house. "Here," came a weak voice from the kitchen. Wounded but breathing. Alicia kept her gun trained on Torres while Jonathan retrieved the other weapons. The 2 remaining gunmen were unconscious, and Torres was in no condition to fight. "Tiana," Alicia called out. "Baby, it's Mommy. It's safe now." A few moments later, her daughter appeared at the top of the stairs, her face tear-streaked but determined. "Is it over?" "It's over," Alicia said, finally allowing herself to breathe. Tiana ran down the stairs and threw herself into her mother's arms. Alicia held her tight, feeling the fear and adrenaline finally give way to relief. "You were so brave," she whispered into her daughter's hair. "I'm so proud of you." "I was scared," Tiana admitted. "But I remembered what you taught me about being strong." Jonathan watched this reunion with tears in his eyes. These 2 people, this incredible woman and her amazing daughter, had become the most important things in his world. And he'd almost lost them. "Jonathan," Alicia said, looking up at him. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," he said, moving closer to them. "Thanks to you. We make a good team," Alicia said with a tired smile. "The best," Jonathan agreed, kneeling down to Tiana's level. "And you, little soldier, were the bravest person in this whole house." Tiana beamed at the praise. "Does this mean the bad men can't hurt us anymore?" "That's right," Jonathan said. "It's over. All of it." As they waited for the police and paramedics to arrive, Alicia found herself thinking about what Jonathan had said the day before. About building something real together, about becoming a family. After what they'd just been through, after seeing how he'd been willing to die rather than give in to Torres, she was beginning to believe it might actually be possible. "Jonathan," she said quietly while Tiana was talking to Agent Martinez, who had emerged from the kitchen with her arm in a makeshift sling. "Yeah. When this is really over," Alicia said, "when we're back home and safe, I want to try." "Try what?" "Building something real with you," Alicia said. "Seeing what we could be together." Jonathan's face lit up with a smile that made her heart skip. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," Alicia said. "Tiana was right. We are going to be a family." "All 3 of us?" "All 3 of us," Alicia confirmed, and for the first time in days she felt truly hopeful about the future. 2 weeks later, Alicia sat in Jonathan's office, still wearing her new security chief uniform and feeling slightly overwhelmed by the mahogany desk, leather chairs and floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city. The transition from night security guard to head of corporate security had been swift, but she was beginning to settle into the role. "The board meeting went well," Jonathan said, entering with 2 cups of coffee. "Everyone's impressed with the new security protocols you've implemented." "They should be," Alicia said, accepting the coffee gratefully. "After what happened with Chen, we needed a complete overhaul." It had taken the police investigation to reveal the full extent of Robert Chen's betrayal. He'd been selling information to competitors for months, not just to Torres. The kidnapping had been commissioned by Marcus Sterling, CEO of Sterling International, who'd seen Jonathan's disappearance as the fastest way to acquire Norman Industries. "Any word on Sterling's trial?" Alicia asked. "His lawyers are pushing for a plea deal," Jonathan said, settling into the chair across from her. "Torres is already talking, trying to reduce his sentence." "Chen." He shrugged. "Chen's looking at 20 years minimum." "Good," Alicia said firmly. "He put a lot of people in danger for money." Jonathan studied her face, seeing the lingering tension there. "You're still angry about it." "I'm angry that he threatened my daughter," Alicia said. "I'm angry that he made me question whether I could keep her safe. But mostly I'm angry at myself for not seeing it sooner." "How could you have seen it?" Jonathan asked. Chen had been with the company for years. He had excellent references, clean background checks, no red flags. "I should have noticed the behavioral changes," Alicia said. "The stress, the financial pressure, the little tells that someone's hiding something. It's what I was trained to look for." Jonathan leaned forward. "Alicia, you can't protect everyone from everything. Even you have limits." "Not when it comes to the people I care about," Alicia said. "I won't make that mistake again." Jonathan reached across the desk and took her hand. "Is that what you're afraid of? Making another mistake?" Alicia looked down at their joined hands, his pale skin contrasting with her darker complexion. "I'm afraid of a lot of things," she admitted. "Like what?" "Like failing you. Like failing Tiana. Like letting my guard down and missing something that could hurt the people I love." "You're not going to fail us," Jonathan said gently. "But you can't live your whole life on high alert. You need to trust that it's okay to relax sometimes." Alicia was quiet for a moment, then pulled her hand away and walked to the window. The city spread out below them, millions of people going about their daily lives, most of them blissfully unaware of the dangers that lurked in the shadows. "When I was in the military," she said, "there was this saying, complacency kills. It means the moment you think you're safe, the moment you stop being vigilant, that's when something goes wrong." "But you're not in the military anymore," Jonathan said, joining her at the window. "And this isn't a war zone." "Isn't it?" Alicia asked. "We just survived a kidnapping attempt. We're surrounded by corporate espionage, board members who would sell each other out for profit, competitors who hire criminals. How is this not a war zone?" Jonathan was quiet for a moment, considering her words. "Maybe you're right," he said finally. "Maybe the business world is its own kind of battlefield. But that doesn't mean we can't find peace in our personal lives." "Peace?" Alicia repeated as if it were a foreign concept. "I'm not sure I remember what that feels like." "When's the last time you felt truly relaxed?" Alicia thought about it. "Maybe when Tiana was a baby and I would rock her to sleep at night. For those few minutes, holding her in my arms, nothing else mattered. The world could have ended and I wouldn't have cared as long as she was safe." "You still feel that way about her," Jonathan observed. "Yes, but now I'm terrified all the time that something will happen to her," Alicia said. "Every morning when I drop her off at school, I wonder if it'll be the last time I see her. Every night when I tuck her in, I check the locks 3 times and set the alarm." "That's trauma talking," Jonathan said gently. "It's normal after what we went through." "Is it?" Alicia asked. "Or is it just reality? The world is dangerous, Jonathan. Bad things happen to good people every day." "They do," Jonathan agreed. "But good things happen too. Love happens. Family happens. Happiness happens. And it can all be taken away in an instant," Alicia said. Jonathan turned to face her fully. "So what's the alternative? Never love anyone because you might lose them? Never be happy because it might not last?" "It's safer," Alicia said quietly. "It's not living," Jonathan countered. "It's just existing." Alicia felt tears prick her eyes. "I don't know how to do this, Jonathan. I don't know how to love someone and not be terrified of losing them." "You do it one day at a time," Jonathan said, stepping closer to her. "You do it by choosing trust over fear, hope over cynicism, love over safety. What if I choose wrong? Then we'll deal with whatever comes together," Jonathan said. "That's what partnerships are for." Alicia looked up at him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. "You make it sound so simple." "It's not simple," Jonathan admitted. "It's terrifying. I've never felt as vulnerable as I do when I think about losing you and Tiana. But I've also never felt as alive as I do when I'm with both of you." "I hurt people I love," Alicia said suddenly. "I push them away when they get too close. I did it to Tiana's father, I did it to friends, I'll probably do it to you." "Why?" "Because it's easier to be alone than to risk being abandoned," Alicia said. "If I push you away first, then I'm in control of the pain." Jonathan reached up and cupped her face gently. I'm not going anywhere, Alicia. No matter how hard you push, no matter how scared you get, I'm not leaving. You can't promise that, Alicia whispered. I can promise that I'll never leave by choice, Jonathan said. I can promise that whatever happens, we'll face it together. What if I'm not worth the risk? Alicia asked. You are, Jonathan said firmly. You're worth every risk, every fear, every moment of uncertainty. You're worth everything. Alicia felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. I love you, she whispered. And it terrifies me. I love you too, Jonathan said. And I'm terrified too. But I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you. He kissed her then, soft and gentle, and Alicia felt something inside her chest loosen. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to be completely vulnerable, to trust that maybe, just maybe, she was safe here. What about Tiana? She asked when they broke apart. What about her? She's already calling you her new daddy, Alicia said. What happens if this doesn't work out between us? It will work out, Jonathan said confidently. How can you be so sure? Because we both love her more than anything, Jonathan said. Because we're both committed to making this work. Because some things are worth fighting for. Alicia looked out the window again, but this time the city looked different. Less threatening, more full of possibilities. She wants to plant that butterfly garden we talked about, she said. Then we'll plant it, Jonathan said. All three of us. She also wants to enter the science fair again this year, Alicia said. Something about building a robot that can help people. Of course she does, Jonathan said with a smile. She wants to save the world. She gets that from her mother, Alicia said. She gets her intelligence from her mother too, Jonathan said. And her strength and her determination and her beautiful heart. She's going to need all of that, Alicia said. Growing up in our world. Our world, Jonathan repeated. I like the sound of that. It's going to be complicated, Alicia warned. I'm still learning how to balance being a mother and a security chief and maybe a girlfriend. We'll figure it out together, Jonathan said. That's what families do. Is that what we are now? Alicia asked. A family? If you want to be, Jonathan said. I know it's fast, I know it's complicated, but I can't imagine my life without both of you in it. Alicia thought about Tiana, who'd been asking every day when Jonathan was coming over for dinner again. She thought about how natural it had felt when he'd helped with homework and read bedtime stories. She thought about how safe she felt when he was around, not just physically but emotionally. Okay, she said quietly. Okay. Let's try being a family, Alicia said. All three of us. Jonathan's smile was brighter than the sunlight streaming through the office windows. Are you sure? I'm sure, Alicia said, and for the first time she meant it completely. But we're taking it slow. No rushing into anything, no big gestures, just seeing what develops naturally. Agreed, Jonathan said. Though I should probably warn you that Tiana's already planning our wedding. Our what? Alicia asked, her eyes widening. She told me yesterday that she wants to be the flower girl, Jonathan said with a grin. Apparently she's already picked out her dress. Jonathan. I told her that weddings are for grown-ups to decide, he said quickly. But I also told her that if it ever happened, she would definitely be the most important part of it. Alicia felt her heart melt. You're going to spoil her. Probably, Jonathan admitted. Is that okay? As long as you remember that I'm the one who handles discipline, Alicia said. Deal? Jonathan said. Though I reserve the right to be the fun parent sometimes. We'll negotiate that later, Alicia said, but she was smiling now. As they stood together in his office, looking out at the city that had brought them together in the most unlikely circumstances, Alicia felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not just for herself but for Tiana, for their future together, for the family they were building one day at a time. It wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, disagreements, moments of doubt. But for the first time in her life she wasn't facing them alone. She had Jonathan and he had her, and together they had Tiana. It was enough. More than enough. It was everything. The call came at 3 a.m, jolting Alicia awake from a deep sleep. Her phone displayed an unknown number, but something about the timing made her answer despite her better judgment. Miss Thompson, a familiar voice said, and her blood ran cold. Vincent Torres. I trust you're sleeping well. Alicia shot upright in bed, immediately alert. You're supposed to be in prison. Supposed to be, yes, Torres said with amusement in his voice. But money has a way of opening locked doors, doesn't it? Alicia was already moving, grabbing her robe and checking the window for any signs of surveillance. What do you want? What I've always wanted, Torres said. To complete my contract. Mr. Norman needs to pay for the inconvenience he's caused my employer. Sterling is in prison too, Alicia said, moving quietly toward Tiana's room. Sterling was the initial client, yes. But when he failed to pay the balance of my fee, the contract was sold to someone with much deeper pockets and much less patience. Alicia's heart sank as she peered into Tiana's room and saw the empty bed, covers thrown back as if her daughter had gotten up in a hurry. Where is she? Your daughter is safe, Torres said. For now. But her continued safety depends on your cooperation. If you hurt her. You'll what? Torres interrupted. Hunt me down? Kill me? Miss Thompson, I've been doing this much longer than you've been playing security guard. The child is leverage, nothing more. As long as you do exactly what I say, she'll remain unharmed. Alicia forced herself to think clearly despite the panic clawing at her chest. What do you want me to do? Bring Mr. Norman to the old Norman Industries warehouse on Pier 47, Torres said. The one that's been empty since the company moved to the new building. Come alone, no backup, no police, no clever military tactics. Just you and him. When? You have 1 hour, Torres said. And Miss Thompson? If I see any sign of law enforcement, if I detect any kind of surveillance or backup, your daughter dies. Is that clear? Crystal clear, Alicia said through gritted teeth. The line went dead and Alicia immediately called Jonathan. He answered on the first ring, already awake. Alicia? What's wrong? Torres has Tiana, she said, her voice barely controlled. He wants us to meet him at the old warehouse in 1 hour. I'm on my way, Jonathan said without hesitation. No, Alicia said firmly. This is exactly what he wants. He's using my daughter to get to you. Then we'll give him what he wants, Jonathan said. We'll end this tonight. Jonathan, this isn't just about money anymore, Alicia said. Someone else hired him, someone who wants you dead, not just bankrupted. This is a trap. I know, Jonathan said quietly. But we can't leave Tiana with him. Alicia closed her eyes, feeling the weight of an impossible choice. Save the man she loved or save her daughter. No parent should ever have to make that decision. We need a plan, she said finally. I'll call Martinez, Jonathan said. Set up surveillance. No, Alicia interrupted. He'll be watching for that. He'll know if we bring backup. Then what do you suggest? Alicia thought about the warehouse, about its layout and vulnerabilities. She'd driven past it dozens of times during her security rounds, noting its multiple entrances, its maze-like interior, its position at the end of an isolated pier. We go in alone just like he wants, she said. But we don't go in unprepared. What do you mean? Meet me at my apartment in 20 minutes, Alicia said. And Jonathan? Bring your car keys. We're going to need speed. As Alicia dressed quickly in dark clothes and gathered her equipment, her mind raced through possible scenarios. Torres was a professional, which meant he would have planned for multiple contingencies. But he was also arrogant, and arrogance led to mistakes. More importantly, he'd made the error of threatening her child. Military training was one thing, but a mother's protective instincts were something else entirely. Torres had no idea what kind of enemy he'd made. Jonathan arrived exactly 20 minutes later, his face grim with determination. What's the plan? Torres expects us to walk into his trap, Alicia said, checking her weapon and spare ammunition. So that's exactly what we're going to do. But we're going to be ready for him. She spread a map of the warehouse district on her kitchen table, marking entry points and escape routes. He'll position himself here, she said, pointing to the main entrance. Good sight lines, easy escape to the water if things go wrong. Where will he keep Tiana? Somewhere he can see her, but we can't get to her easily, Alicia said. Probably the upper level near the windows. He'll want her visible as motivation. How do we get to her? We don't, Alicia said. Not both of us. This only works if we split up. Jonathan frowned. I don't like that. You don't have to like it, Alicia said. But it's the only way to save her and survive this. You're going to walk in the front door exactly like Torres expects. Keep him talking, keep his attention on you. While you do what? While I go in through the service entrance and get to Tiana, Alicia said. Once she's safe, we can deal with Torres. What if he has backup? He will, Alicia said. But probably not many. Torres works with small teams, usually 2 or 3 men max. I can handle that. Jonathan looked at the map, understanding the risks they were taking. What if something goes wrong? What if I can't keep his attention long enough? Then you improvise, Alicia said. You're good at that. Alicia, if something happens to me? Nothing's going to happen to you, she said firmly. I won't let it. But if it does, Jonathan insisted, promise me you'll take care of Tiana. Promise me you'll make sure she knows I loved her. Alicia felt tears prick her eyes. You can tell her yourself when this is over. Promise me, Jonathan said. I promise, Alicia said. But I also promise that we're all walking away from this tonight. All three of us. They drove to the warehouse district in Jonathan's car, the city lights flashing past as they navigated empty streets. It was the dead of night, the time when honest people were asleep and only the desperate and dangerous remained awake. There, Alicia said, pointing to the dark bulk of the warehouse against the pier. I can see lights on the upper level. That's where she is? That's where she is, Alicia confirmed. Remember, keep him talking. The longer you can delay, the more time I have to get into position. Jonathan parked 2 blocks away and they walked the rest of the distance in silence. At the warehouse, they separated, Jonathan heading for the main entrance while Alicia circled around to the service door she'd spotted on the map. The service door was locked, but Alicia's military training included basic breaking and entering. She had it open in under 30 seconds and slipped inside the dark warehouse. The building smelled of dust and rust, years of abandonment evident in every corner. Alicia moved carefully through the maze of old equipment and storage areas, using the layout she'd memorized to navigate toward the stairs. She could hear voices from the main floor, Jonathan and Torres, their conversation echoing in the vast space. Jonathan was doing his job, keeping the man distracted while she worked her way toward Tiana. Mr. Norman, Torres was saying, you've caused me considerable trouble. Sorry about that, Jonathan replied, his voice calm despite the circumstances. Maybe we can work something out. Alicia reached the stairs and began climbing, moving as quietly as possible. She could see light filtering down from the upper level, and her heart hammered as she thought about her daughter up there, probably scared and confused. The only thing we can work out is your death, Torres said. My new employer is very specific about that requirement. Who hired you? Jonathan asked. Sterling's in prison. Sterling was small time, Torres said with contempt. My new client has much bigger plans for your company. Plans that require your permanent absence. Alicia reached the upper level and saw them immediately, Torres and 2 other men standing near the windows with Jonathan visible below on the main floor. And there, tied to a chair near the far wall, was Tiana. Her daughter was alive and appeared unharmed, though her eyes were wide with fear. When she spotted her mother, Tiana's face lit up with hope, but Alicia quickly held a finger to her lips, signaling for silence. Moving carefully in the shadows, Alicia began working her way toward her daughter. She needed to free Tiana and get her to safety before confronting Torres. You know, Jonathan was saying below, my death won't actually solve your client's problems. The company has succession plans, board oversight, all kinds of protections. Perhaps, Torres said. But dead men can't fight hostile takeovers. Alicia reached Tiana's chair and quickly began working on the ropes binding her daughter's hands. Tiana remained perfectly still, understanding instinctively that their lives depended on silence. Who is it? Jonathan asked. Who wants me dead badly enough to hire you? Someone who's been waiting a very long time for this opportunity, Torres said. Someone you trusted completely. Alicia felt the ropes give way and helped Tiana to her feet. Together, they began moving toward the emergency exit she'd spotted on the far side of the upper level. But one of Torres's men had been watching the shadows. Boss, he called out, we've got movement upstairs. Torres spun around, his gun immediately trained on the upper level. Miss Thompson, how good of you to join us. Please bring the child where I can see her. Alicia felt her heart sink. They were so close to safety, but Torres had positioned himself perfectly to command both levels of the warehouse. Let her go, Torres, Alicia called out, stepping into view but keeping Tiana behind her. This is between you and us. She's just a child. She's leverage, Torres corrected. And right now, she's the only thing keeping both of you alive. Jonathan looked up at Alicia and Tiana, his face filled with anguish. Let me guess, he called out to Torres. Your client is someone on my board of directors. Someone who's been planning this from the inside. Very good, Mr. Norman, Torres said. Though it won't matter much longer. It's Davidson, isn't it? Jonathan said. Richard Davidson. He's been pushing for that merger for months. Torres smiled. Mr. Davidson has big plans for Norman Industries. Plans that don't include the Norman family. Then you're working for a fool, Jonathan said. Davidson doesn't have the money to pull off a hostile takeover. He's been hemorrhaging cash for years. He will after tonight, Torres said. Amazing what a generous life insurance policy can accomplish. Alicia realized with growing horror what Torres was planning. Not just Jonathan's death but hers too. Davidson wanted to eliminate anyone who might interfere with his takeover, and that included the security chief who'd already proven she could stop professional killers. Tiana, she whispered to her daughter, when I give you the signal, I want you to run to that red exit sign. Don't look back, don't wait for me, just run. Can you do that? Tiana nodded, her 8-year-old face showing a courage that made Alicia's heart break with pride. Torres, Alicia called out, I have a better idea. You want Jonathan dead? Fine. But let my daughter go first. She can't hurt you, she can't identify you, she's no threat to anyone. Actually she is, Torres said. She's seen too much, heard too much. In my business we call that a liability. In my business, Alicia said, we call that a mistake. She pushed Tiana toward the exit and threw herself sideways as Torres's gun fired. The bullet missed her by inches, embedding itself in the wall behind where she'd been standing. Chaos erupted in the warehouse. Jonathan tackled Torres from behind, sending both men sprawling across the main floor. Alicia rolled to cover behind an old conveyor belt as the two gunmen on the upper level opened fire. But they'd made a crucial error. They'd focused all their attention on her, forgetting about the scared little girl who just disappeared through the emergency exit. Tiana was safe. Now Alicia could fight without holding back. She popped up from cover and put 2 bullets center mass into the nearest gunman. He dropped instantly, his weapon clattering across the floor. The second man spun toward her, but Alicia was already moving, using the warehouse's maze of equipment for cover. Below, Jonathan and Torres were locked in hand-to-hand combat, rolling across the concrete floor as they struggled for control of Torres's gun. Jonathan was younger and desperate, but Torres was a trained killer with years of experience. Alicia needed to end this quickly. She worked her way around the upper level, using shadows and equipment for concealment, until she had a clear shot at the remaining gunman. Her bullet took him in the shoulder, spinning him around but not dropping him. He raised his weapon toward her, but before he could fire, a gunshot echoed from the main floor. Torres had managed to get his gun free, but instead of shooting Jonathan, he'd put a bullet into his own man to prevent him from killing Alicia. Enough! Torres shouted, blood streaming from his nose where Jonathan had hit him. Everyone stops shooting or the girl dies. What girl? Alicia called out. My daughter's already gone. She's safe. Torres's face went pale as he realized his leverage had disappeared. Then you've all signed your death warrants. No, said a new voice from the warehouse entrance. You have. Agent Martinez stepped into view, flanked by a full FBI tactical team. Vincent Torres, you're under arrest for kidnapping, attempted murder, and conspiracy to commit murder. Torres raised his gun toward Martinez, but Jonathan tackled him again before he could fire. This time Alicia had a clear shot. Her bullet took Torres in the shoulder, the same shoulder she'd wounded weeks earlier. He dropped his weapon and fell to his knees, finally defeated. That's for threatening my daughter, Alicia said, keeping her gun trained on him until the FBI agents secured the scene. Jonathan stood up slowly, his clothes torn and face bloodied but his eyes bright with relief. Is Tiana really safe? She's with Agent Martinez's backup team, Martinez confirmed. Scared but unharmed. She followed the exit route exactly like you taught her, Miss Thompson. Alicia felt her knees go weak with relief. Her daughter was safe. Jonathan was alive. Torres was finally in custody for good. It was over. How did you know to come here? Jonathan asked Martinez as paramedics checked his injuries. Miss Thompson called me before you left her apartment, Martinez said. She figured you might need backup despite Torres's threats. Jonathan looked at Alicia in amazement. You called for help? I'm not stupid, Jonathan, Alicia said with a tired smile. I'm brave, not reckless. There's a difference. What about Davidson? Jonathan asked. Already in custody, Martinez said. We picked him up an hour ago based on Torres's phone records. He's been planning this takeover for months, paying Torres and Chen to feed him information about your security and personal life. So it's really over? Alicia asked. It's really over, Martinez confirmed. Torres is going away for life this time, Davidson's looking at conspiracy charges, and Chen's already agreed to testify against both of them in exchange for a reduced sentence. As the FBI finished processing the scene, Alicia found herself outside the warehouse, breathing the cool night air and marveling at the fact that they were all still alive. Tiana ran to her from the backup vehicle, throwing herself into her mother's arms. "Mommy? You came for me?" "Of course I came for you," Alicia said, holding her daughter tight. "I'll always come for you. Is Jonathan okay?" Tiana asked, looking over at where paramedics were bandaging a cut on his forehead. "He's fine, baby. We're all fine." "Good," Tiana said seriously. "Because I was really scared those bad men were going to hurt my family." Alicia looked over at Jonathan, who was watching them with tears in his eyes. Her family. That's what they were now, officially and completely. "Are we really safe now?" Tiana asked. "We're really safe," Alicia confirmed. "The bad men are going to prison forever and we never have to worry about them again. Can we go home now? I want to sleep in my own bed." "Soon, baby," Alicia said. "First we have to talk to the police and make sure they have everything they need." Jonathan walked over to them, moving slowly but steadily. "How are my girls doing?" "We're good," Tiana said, reaching out to hug him. "I wasn't too scared because I knew you and Mommy would save me." "You were incredibly brave," Jonathan said, kneeling down to her level despite his injuries. "I'm so proud of you." "I did exactly what Mommy taught me," Tiana said proudly. "I stayed calm, I followed the plan, and I ran when she told me to run." "That's my little soldier," Alicia said, smoothing her daughter's hair. "Are you hurt, Jonathan?" Tiana asked, noticing the bandage on his forehead. "Just a little," Jonathan said. "Nothing that won't heal." "Good," Tiana said. "Because we still have to plant our butterfly garden. And I want to start working on my science fair project. I'm going to build a robot that helps keep families safe." Jonathan and Alicia exchanged a look over her head. Even after everything she'd been through, Tiana was still thinking about helping others, still believing in the possibility of making the world better. "That sounds like an excellent project," Jonathan said. "I'd be honored to help you build it." "Really? You know about robots?" "I know about a lot of things," Jonathan said with a smile. "And what I don't know we can learn together." As they waited for the police to finish their interviews, Alicia found herself thinking about how much their lives had changed since that first night in the parking garage. They'd started as strangers, a CEO and a security guard, and somehow become a family through danger, trust, and love. "Alicia," Jonathan said quietly while Tiana was distracted by watching the FBI agents work, "I meant what I said earlier. About taking care of her if something happened to me." "Nothing happened to you," Alicia said firmly. "We're all here, we're all safe, and we're all going home together." "But if it had?" "But it didn't," Alicia interrupted. "Jonathan, we can't live our lives constantly preparing for worst-case scenarios. Sometimes we have to trust that things will work out." "Is that what you're doing now? Trusting?" "I'm trying," Alicia said. "It's not easy for me, but I'm trying." "What changed your mind?" Alicia looked at her daughter, then at Jonathan, then at the warehouse where they'd almost lost everything that mattered. "I realized that being scared of losing something isn't a good enough reason not to have it in the first place. Fear isn't protection, it's just another kind of prison." "So what now?" Jonathan asked. "Now we go home," Alicia said. "We plant that butterfly garden. We help Tiana build her robot. We figure out how to be a normal family." "Normal?" Jonathan repeated with a laugh. "I'm not sure any of us knows how to do normal." "Then we'll learn together," Alicia said, echoing his words to Tiana. "That's what families do." As they finally left the warehouse district, driving home through the empty streets of the early morning, Alicia felt something she hadn't experienced in years: complete peace. Not the alertness of someone waiting for the next threat, but the deep contentment of someone who knew they were exactly where they belonged. Torres was defeated. Davidson was in custody. The threat to their family was over. And for the first time since she'd become a mother, Alicia could look toward the future without fear. They were safe. They were together. They were home. 6 months later, Alicia stood in the backyard of their new house, watching Jonathan and Tiana work together on the butterfly garden they'd been planning since the safe house. The morning sun was warm on her face, and the sound of her daughter's laughter filled the air as Jonathan pretended to be confused about which plants were which. "No, Jonathan." Tiana giggled. "Those are marigolds, not roses. Butterflies love marigolds because they're bright and have lots of nectar." "Ah," Jonathan said seriously, making a note in the small notebook he'd been carrying around. "Marigolds for butterflies. Got it. What about these purple ones?" "Those are lavender," Tiana explained patiently. "They smell really good and they attract bees too. Bees are important pollinators." "Everything's a science lesson with her," Alicia called out from the porch where she was setting up their lunch on the outdoor table. I like science lessons, Jonathan replied, grinning at her. Did you know that butterflies taste with their feet? I taught him that, Tiana said proudly. And did you know that some butterflies migrate thousands of miles? Just like birds. Alicia smiled as she watched them work. The house was perfect. Not too big, not too small, with a yard for Tiana to play in and enough space for all of them to have privacy when they needed it. More importantly, it felt like home in a way her old apartment never had. Lunch is ready, she called out. 5 more minutes, Mommy, Tiana said. We're almost done with this section. The flowers aren't going anywhere, baby, Alicia said. But the sandwiches are getting warm. They gathered around the outdoor table, all 3 of them dirt-stained and happy. Tiana chattered about her upcoming science fair project while they ate, her robot design spread out on the table between the plates and glasses. Mrs. Johnson says my robot is the most advanced project anyone's ever brought to the fair, Tiana said proudly. She wants to enter it in the district competition too. That's wonderful, sweetheart, Alicia said. You've worked really hard on it. Jonathan helped a lot, Tiana said generously. He knows about circuits and programming and all kinds of technical stuff. Jonathan has many hidden talents, Alicia said, meeting his eyes across the table with a smile that made his heart skip. Speaking of talents, Jonathan said, I have some news to share. Good news or bad news? Tiana asked. Good news, Jonathan assured her. Very good news. The board approved my proposal for the Norman Foundation. What's that? Tiana asked. It's a foundation that will provide scholarships for kids who want to study science and engineering, Jonathan explained. Kids whose families can't afford college but who have big dreams about making the world better. Like me? Tiana asked. Exactly like you, Jonathan said. In fact, you're going to be our first scholarship recipient when you're ready for college. Really? Tiana's eyes lit up. Even if I want to go to MIT? Especially if you want to go to MIT, Jonathan said. Alicia felt tears prick her eyes. Jonathan had been working on this foundation for months, quietly planning a way to help children like Tiana achieve their dreams. It was typical of him, finding ways to use his wealth and influence to make a real difference in people's lives. Thank you, she said quietly. Thank me for what? Jonathan asked. For seeing her potential, Alicia said. For believing in her dreams. For making me believe they're possible too. They were always possible, Jonathan said. You just needed someone to remind you. After lunch, while Tiana worked on her robot in the garage, Alicia and Jonathan cleaned up together in comfortable silence. It was one of the things she loved most about their relationship. How natural it felt, how easily they moved around each other, how perfectly their routines had merged. I got a call from Agent Martinez this morning, Jonathan said as he dried the dishes. Oh. Alicia looked up from wiping down the table. How's she doing? Good. She wanted to let us know that Torres was sentenced yesterday. Life without parole. Alicia felt a weight lift from her shoulders that she hadn't even realized was still there. And Davidson? 25 years, Jonathan said. His lawyers tried to argue that he never intended for anyone to get hurt, but the judge wasn't buying it. Good, Alicia said firmly. He put a lot of people in danger for money. It's really over now, Jonathan said. All of it. I know, Alicia said. I can feel it. For the first time in months, I'm not looking over my shoulder or planning escape routes everywhere we go. How does it feel? Jonathan asked. Strange, Alicia admitted. But good. Really good. Jonathan set down the dish towel and moved closer to her. There's something else I wanted to talk to you about. What's that? Jonathan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Alicia's breath caught as he dropped to one knee beside her. Alicia Thompson, he said, his voice shaking slightly, you saved my life in more ways than one. You taught me what love really means, what family looks like, what's truly worth fighting for. Jonathan. Alicia whispered. I know we said we'd take things slow, he continued, but I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life with you and Tiana. I want to plant gardens and help with science projects and worry about college tuition and all the ordinary, extraordinary things that families do together. He opened the box, revealing a simple but beautiful diamond ring. Will you marry me? Alicia looked down at him, this man who had changed her life so completely, who had shown her that love didn't have to mean vulnerability, that trust didn't have to mean weakness. What does Tiana think about this? She asked. I asked her permission yesterday, Jonathan said with a smile. She said it was about time. Did she now? She also said she wants to help plan the wedding, Jonathan added. Something about butterfly decorations and a cake shaped like a robot. Alicia laughed, imagining her daughter's excited planning. And what did you tell her? I told her it was up to you, Jonathan said. But that if you said yes, we'd have the most beautiful, science-themed wedding anyone had ever seen. Alicia looked at the ring, then at Jonathan's hopeful face, then toward the garage where she could hear Tiana humming as she worked on her project. This was her life now, this man, this child, this house, this peace. It was everything she'd never dared to dream about. Yes, she said softly. Yes. Yes, I'll marry you, Alicia said, laughing as tears ran down her cheeks. Yes to everything. The foundation, the wedding, the robot cake, all of it. Jonathan slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood up and kissed her deeply. Through the window they could see Tiana working in the garage, completely absorbed in her project, safe and happy and loved. When should we tell her? Jonathan asked. Tell me what? Tiana said, appearing in the doorway with oil-stained hands and a curious expression. That we're getting married, Alicia said, showing her the ring. Tiana's squeal of excitement could probably be heard 3 blocks away. She launched herself at both of them, wrapping her arms around their waists in a fierce hug. I knew it, she said. I told Mrs. Patterson you were going to get married. She owes me $5. You bet on our engagement? Jonathan asked, amused. Not bet, Tiana said seriously. Predicted. There's a difference. Scientists make predictions based on observed data. And what data did you observe? Alicia asked. You smile differently when you look at each other, Tiana said matter-of-factly. And Jonathan started putting extra marshmallows in my hot chocolate without me asking. And you stopped checking the locks 3 times every night. Alicia and Jonathan exchanged amazed looks. Their 8-year-old had been studying their relationship with scientific precision. So when's the wedding? Tiana asked. Can I wear a purple dress? Can we have dancing? Can my robot be the ring bearer? Slow down, scientist, Alicia said, laughing. We just got engaged 5 minutes ago. But planning is important, Tiana said. Mrs. Johnson says proper planning prevents poor performance. Your teacher is very wise, Jonathan said. How about we sit down tonight and start making lists? Lists are good, Tiana agreed. I already started one. Want to see? She ran back to the garage and returned with a notebook filled with her careful handwriting. The first page was titled Mommy and Jonathan's Wedding Plans, and included items like butterfly cake toppers, science centerpieces, and dance to happy music. You've been planning our wedding? Alicia asked. Just in case, Tiana said. I wanted to be ready. Alicia felt her heart overflow with love for this amazing child who had adapted to every change in their lives with grace and enthusiasm. Tiana had never known a traditional family, but she understood that families came in all shapes and sizes, that love was what mattered most. You know what? Alicia said, pulling both Jonathan and Tiana close. I think we should use every single idea on your list. Really? Tiana's eyes lit up. Really? Jonathan confirmed. This is going to be the most scientifically accurate, butterfly-themed, robot-inclusive wedding in history. Can we start planning now? Tiana asked. After you wash your hands, Alicia said. And after we finish the garden. And after we eat dinner, Jonathan added. And after homework, Alicia continued. And after bedtime stories, Jonathan finished. Tiana groaned dramatically. Adults are so slow. Good things are worth waiting for, Alicia said, echoing the words her own mother had told her years ago. I know, Tiana said seriously. You and Jonathan were worth waiting for. As they settled back into their afternoon routine, finishing the garden, working on homework, preparing dinner together, Alicia marveled at how normal it all felt. Not boring normal but peaceful normal. The kind of ordinary moments that made up a life well lived. That evening, after Tiana had gone to bed, Alicia and Jonathan sat on their back porch, looking out at the butterfly garden they'd planted together. The flowers were already attracting visitors, and they could see several butterflies moving among the blossoms in the fading light. Are you happy? Jonathan asked, taking her hand and running his thumb over her engagement ring. I'm more than happy, Alicia said. I'm content. I didn't think I knew how to be content. What changed? You, Alicia said simply. Both of you. You showed me that security doesn't come from being alone or being constantly vigilant. It comes from being loved. I love you, Jonathan said. Both of you. More than I thought it was possible to love anyone. I love you too, Alicia said. And I trust you. That's bigger than love for me. I know, Jonathan said, understanding the weight of that admission. I won't take it lightly. I know you won't, Alicia said. That's why I can trust you. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the last butterflies of the day visit their garden. In 6 months they'd gone from strangers to lovers to a family. In 6 more months they'd be married, officially and permanently committed to building a life together. It wasn't the life Alicia had planned for herself or Tiana. It was better. It was fuller, richer, more surprising and wonderful than anything she could have imagined when she was working nights as a security guard and struggling to make ends meet. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For seeing me, Alicia said. For seeing past the uniform and the job title to who I really was. For giving Tiana a father who loves her unconditionally. For showing me that fairy tales can come true, even for single mothers who work night shifts. Thank you, Jonathan said, for saving my life. Not just from the kidnappers but from loneliness. For teaching me what really matters. For giving me a family. We're quite a pair, aren't we? Alicia said with a smile. We're perfect, Jonathan said, kissing her gently. All 3 of us. Inside the house, they could hear Tiana's voice calling out from her bedroom. Mommy? Jonathan. Come see what I drew. They went inside to find Tiana sitting up in bed with her sketchbook, showing them a picture of their butterfly garden with 3 stick figures standing in it. A tall figure labeled Jonathan, a medium figure labeled Mommy, and a small figure labeled me. That's us, Tiana said proudly. In our garden. We're all smiling because we're happy. We are happy, Alicia said, sitting on the edge of the bed. Are you happy, baby? I'm the happiest, Tiana said confidently. I have the best mommy and the best almost daddy and the best robot and the best garden and the best life ever. The best life ever, Jonathan repeated, settling on the other side of the bed. I like the sound of that. Me too, Alicia said, looking around at her family, her real, chosen, perfect family. Me too. As they tucked Tiana in for the night, reading her favorite story about a little girl who wanted to be an astronaut, Alicia felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought them to this moment. The danger, the fear, the uncertainty, all of it had been worth it to arrive at this place of love and security and hope. Tomorrow they would start planning their wedding. They would continue working on Tiana's robot, tending their garden, building their life together one ordinary, extraordinary day at a time. But tonight they were simply a family. Safe, loved, and home at last. Thank you so much for reading this story. I hope Jonathan, Alicia, and Tiana's journey touched your heart as much as it did mine. Their story shows us that love can bloom in the most unexpected places and that sometimes the best families are the ones we choose for ourselves. I'd love to hear from you. What was your favorite moment in the story? Did you guess who the real villain was before the reveal? What do you think Tiana's robot will look like when she finishes it? And most importantly, what kind of wedding cake do you think they should have? I'm voting for Tiana's robot-shaped idea. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your feedback means the world to me and helps me write even better stories for you.